Ladies and sinners, welcome to another Tuesday evening edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We're back at it again every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we talk all things Vegas sports, i.e. Vegas. The Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. We're back at it again. We love it. Get at us on our Twitter forums, at SinCity_IESR, at my personal, at Cale_Henderson, where we talk all things Vegas sports. And man, we've been on a heater lately, man. Been on a heater. Vegas sports in general is on a heater. I mean, UNLV women's basketball team is killing it. They've made the tournament. They're in the dance. Golden Knights are on the verge of winning 5 straight. They're on a heater. Pun intended, being it's Vegas. I don't know about them Raiders. But we'll talk about that a little bit. I'm going to try and stay as level-headed as possible because I have been a bit negative with this regime for good reason. There's a lot of reason to be negative about this Raiders regime. But we'll expand on that because we're going to talk about NFL free agency in depth because it's the first day since the legal tampering period began on Monday where we could talk all things NFL free agency. Because you guys know that's our deal, man. That's our thing. NFL football is our thing. Even though this is a Vegas sports channel, it is highly relevant to talk about it right now because the free agency frenzy is underway. Hashtag NFL free agency frenzy. And it's a lot of fun. It's always fun to talk about free agency. It's always fun to talk about the possibilities. And there are some positives. There are some pros to what the Raiders are doing. And there are some cons as of right now. And we will find out, what happens this year. Because this is a big year. Big year. We've talked about it for weeks. We've talked about it for months. And we'll expand on that when we get back here on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome back. Thank you for tuning in to another Tuesday evening edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson, again on our Twitter forums. Please tune into our Twitter forums, at SinCity_IESR. Reach out, man. Tweet me. I'm very interactive with the fans. Most of them probably aren't fans, but I'm very interactive with folks that interact with me. I tend to always follow back unless you're rude or outlandish or say something stupid. I respect you, right? You're willing to talk to me. It pushes the Twitter forum along. I love it. Get at me on my Twitter, at Cale_Henderson, where we talk all things Vegas sports. Both Twitters. Now, I won't lie. My personal is it's a little more in depth. I mean, I do talk some video games because I happen to be a hater sometimes, but it is what it is. Taryn Rodriguez and Adam Karnick, the best teammates you'll ever find at IE Sports Radio, are here listening in as always. Taryn chimes in. Good evening, Cale. Have an awesome show as always, man. You're just awesome. Taryn, you're a great dude. I had a PA announcing tonight, but because of the rain, the game got postponed, so I get to listen for the night. Well, I'm sorry you had to postpone volleyball. I know how passionate you are about that, man. I do appreciate you tuning in, though, because, again, you're like the best teammate ever. It's been a mixed bag for the Raiders as of late. I imagine the Raiders could be aiming for a tight end in the draft as well. And then Adam Karnick, the host of Chi-Town Weekly and the Neutral Zone. Good evening. So, Jimmy G, is this a good move? Well, we will go in depth to that. By the way, Taryn Rodriguez, I would give him like teammate of the week all the time because that dude, I'm telling you guys, he is always on it. He's always checking in on me to see if I'm gonna show up for my. I feel like sometimes he's a babysitter, but he's the host of Set Point, the Set Point where he talks all things volleyball, and then the SoCal show, SoCal Sports Show where he talks all things about Southern California. Make sure you guys tune in, man. Taryn is a great teammate. Adam, again, Chi-Town Weekly and the Neutral Zone. Make sure you guys tune into their shows. They're great teammates. I've said this for a long time. I even said this to Adam when we were on his show last week when we got to talk a little bit NFL draft. Since then, the Bears have done some really exciting things, which we're going to cover a little bit tonight, because I would like to have a full-fledged free agency offseason segment since it kicked off. I mean, it's been great. Um, Adam Karnick is probably one of the best show hosts. I think he's got one of the better radio voices. Everything is always so organized, and I'm not throwing any shade at Taryn because Taryn does an amazing job. He's an amazing teammate. He's an administrator here, or one of the administrators here at IE Sports Radio. So he wears a million hats and he's super busy. His content is always very entertaining considering it's volleyball, and he's always talking about everything Southern California, especially with USC and the Chargers being such a hot topic right now. Adam Karnick. Chicago sports have been so bad lately. Adam always finds a way to make things. I mean, his show is just excellent, man. He does a great job. It's a great lineup, and he always does a great job of spitting the facts, man. I think he's very objective too, even though he's a Chicago guy. I think he's very objective, and I think he's one of the best show hosts, if not the best show host here on IE Sports Radio. So you guys give him a chance. Make sure you guys go and listen to Taryn Rodriguez because that man is one of the hardest working dudes in I would say radio, and he just grind. He's a grinder, man. If Gruden was still a coach, Taryn Rodriguez would be a Gruden grinder. No joke. But before we get into it, we got to talk about our platform. Yeah, you guys heard it here first. The platform, IE Sports Radio. For 8 years, we're going 8 years now, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next step. When you go to our website, iesportsradio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers, the first one starting at just $5 a month. This donation gets you shout-outs to all 32 of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of the flagship show, The Defining Moment, who is hosted by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Larry B., basically the creator of IE Sports Radio. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. That's our little plug for the evening for our platform because they deserve it. Adam Karnick, thank you for the kind words. I'm blushing. I mean, you're great, man. You and Taryn are awesome. You guys are the 2 best teammates you could ask for. I need to do more to contribute back to you guys. With my busy schedule, it's kind of nuts, but I am really happy when you guys, invite me to get involved and help bring content to your shows because I think there's a lot of stuff going on in Chicago. I think there's a lot of stuff that could be going on in Los Angeles for the Chargers, man. I'm really excited to talk about those things because we're going to brush up on it tonight. Before we get there, we got to talk about the UNLV women's basketball team who finished the season on a 22-win streak, won the Mountain West Conference. They are 31-2, 17-0 at home, 11-2 away, 18-0 in conference, and they made it to the dance. They are tourney bound. These ladies will be dancing in the March Madness tournament, and they have the 11th seed. They will be taking on Michigan. I think that won't be an easy that won't be an easy slate at all. But they will be taking on Michigan Friday, March 17th at 2 p.m. The time has finally been announced. What a round one matchup with a Big Ten team. Listen, the Lady Rebels have had a storybook season for Lady Rebels, for a Mountain West team in general. To be 31-2. To finish the season on a 22-game win streak. They were totally dominant. They scored 100 points in a single game. I think it was 4 times this year. They've been absolutely fantastic. And, it's no surprise to me that they made the tournament. I am surprised by the seeding. I was actually kind of expecting them to be around where Michigan is, but strength of schedule is a big indicator as to why some of these teams are a bit lower when they're ranked in the tournament. Doesn't mean UNLV can't do damage because they shoot very well. Taryn Rodriguez chimes in, says UNLV women's hoops didn't lose one Mountain West Conference game. I actually have the Lady Rebels winning the game. I believe it or not. Dude, they can do it, man. They can shoot. Like, they're excellent at shooting. I want to say they were around like 49% on the season, which is astronomical in college, man. Like, those are stats that you see in the WNBA. Those are stats that you see in the NBA. Around 49% is ridiculous for a college basketball team. And it's no wonder they score. I mean, they scored more than 90 points. I want to say, oh man, I know they scored 80 points. I want to say on majority of their games, 90 points, a good portion, 100 points, more than 4 games this year. That's incredible, man. In college basketball, where there's 2 halves, these Lady Rebels absolutely kicked ass. They took names, and that's why they're in the tourney, and they have a really good test against a Big Ten team. One thing I'm really finding out about women's basketball is they really value those big programs. They really value the strength of schedule when it comes to their tournament seeding, and I think the men's basketball could do a little bit better job of that. I know the template's kind of the same, but I don't know, man. I think it's a little wishy-washy. You could just tell. This UNLV women's team should probably be like at 7 or 8, but they got stuck at 11. It's because they're a Mountain West team. And honestly, the Mountain West wasn't really tough this year. But we'll find out, man. It's going to be a great test. I'm sure there's going to be a huge difference in size and athleticism. I really hope the Lady Rebels win. I'm with you, Taryn. With the way they score points, it wouldn't surprise me if they win this game. But again, it's a Big Ten school with Big Ten training, and that makes a difference, man. That's why they're the Big Ten. If you're an athlete, you made it there. You're a legit athlete. Good for them. And I'm just really happy for the Lady Rebels, man. They absolutely kicked ass this year. Golden Knights. Golden Knights are currently under. Actually, the game is currently just finished not too long ago against the Philadelphia Flyers. 5-3 win, road win in Philadelphia. The Golden Knights are now winners of 5 straight. 5 straight games. They have, at this current moment, and obviously the rankings haven't quite refreshed on Google, but they were winners of 5 straight after tonight. They will have 92 points in the Pacific Division. They've gone on a run, man. They really have. They've gone on a run because at one point they were actually one of the second or third best team in the West. They're killing it now, dude. Like they're currently leading the Stars, who had a substantial lead for a while. They've gone on a run when it mattered most. Jack Eichel's leading the way. That trade for Jonathan Quick has paid dividends. It's unfortunate they had some injuries so far this year, but man, they're on a run, and that's what matters. They'll have 92 points as of tomorrow, according to Google and ESPN, all that stuff. That's about a 2.5 game lead. So a 2.5 game lead, 3-game lead over the Los Angeles Kings, and about what looks to be a 6 to 8 game lead over the Seattle Kraken, new team in the NHL. Excellent color structure, by the way, color pattern, Seattle Kraken. I like what the Golden Knights have been doing. I think the Golden Knights are a very competitive team. Do I think they could compete with the Bruins? No. The Bruins are unbelievable, guys. I got to touch base on them. I know they're not part of Vegas or IE Vegas, but we got to be real, man. The Bruins are at 105 points. Adam, you're in here. You have to tell me, are they gunning for the single season record for wins right now? Because this is absolutely crazy what they've been able to do in 65 games. 105 points. They're 8-2 in their last 10, which is crazy. Their point differential right now is 103. What? Dude, you gotta tell me, bro. Are they going for a record for wins? I gotta give them their shout out. Even though Vegas is having an excellent year, they're not as good of a team as the Bruins right now, and it's kind of scary how good they've been so far. So you'll have to let me know when we get to that point. We're going to go to a quick break, guys. When we get back, we're going to dive into the NFL free agency, give you my thoughts on NFL free agency so far. The legal tampering period began yesterday. We'll get in depth on that, but we're going to go to break, play some drops from some of my favorite teammates here on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
college football? And do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college and the CCCAA and the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FBS? Well then, look no further. Join myself, Larry B., and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza, each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Everybody, this is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back, ladies and sinners, to another Tuesday edition, back from the break, another Tuesday edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. We're back at it again. We're always at it again every Tuesday evening here on IE Vegas. 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on Spreaker Radio. You guys can find us on our Twitter forums, at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson, where we talk all things Vegas sports. Shout out to UNLV Lady Rebels, who made the tournament, winning 22 straight and the Mountain West Conference to get the 11th seed in March Madness against Michigan Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. Also, shout out to the Golden Knights, who are on a 5-game win streak. absolutely kicking butt, taking names, and then they're in the lead in the Pacific Division. Right now, they're in the lead of the entire West. If the playoffs were to start today in the NHL, the Golden Knights would have home ice advantage, which would be great because Vegas always shows up. Tan Rodriguez chimed in. UNLV women's hoop didn't lose. Yep, we read that earlier. Didn't lose one Mountain West conference game. I actually have the Lady Rebels women. Yep, I agree, man. I think they can beat Michigan. I don't know if they will for sure because that's a different breed of basketball, man. That Big Ten basketball is a little bit different, but they could very well do it. Free agency is underway, folks. The legal tampering period began yesterday, and it went off with a bang. Let's be honest. Jalen Ramsey was traded from the Los Angeles Rams for a bag of chips, a third-round pick, and Hunter Long to the Miami Dolphins. I think that's a trade that really helps the Miami Dolphins. I think it also helps the Rams in a lot of ways, believe it or not. I know it's only a third-round pick, and they get a tight end that'll probably look really good in that outside zone scheme of Sean McVay's. But overall, it helps the Rams offload some of that contract and start a rebuild because I think Snead always does a really good job of drafting there in LA. So that'll be interesting to see how that works. But for the Miami Dolphins, that gives them another number one corner, another reason to fear that the passing defense of the Miami Dolphins in general, which they had to load up on, especially after that playoff loss to the Buffalo Bills. They went after a weakness. They solved the weakness, and it looks that much better. I mean, you know, the AFC West, if we're being honest, I don't know. The AFC West didn't do a ton, I don't think, other than that. I do like the fact that Alan Lazard made it to the Jets. I think the Jets are getting ready to sign Aaron Rodgers. It hasn't been announced yet, but it's going to happen. What's up, Davidson? Thank you so much for joining the show. We're just talking some NFL free agency, man. Feel free to chime in if you want. Alan Lazard made it. He got signed 4-year, $44 million. So here's my take on free agency this far. I think there are some massively inflated contracts. I'm looking at some of these players and what they were paid, man, and I just don't think this free agency period had a lot of really good players this year, not compared to the years past. I think, and then you see some teams that are bargain binning, right? You see some teams that I think they valued the draft because of how deep it is at the tight end position, and I think there's some excellent receivers. It's the top end of the draft has some excellent players. And then when I look at the draft, I'm also looking at, like, there's a bunch of top-end players. There's a bunch of value players in the back end. But in the middle, man, I don't know. Like, you're gonna have to draft for upside, size, traits, and hopefully develop these guys in the mid-rounds because it's not as deep as it normally is, in my opinion, with the exception of the tight end position. I've never seen so many tight ends that could probably play some meaningful football in the NFL than I've ever seen this year. Like, all of those. There's a bunch of tight ends in this year's NFL draft. There's some guys that'll be UDFAs, and they'll probably make a roster, and we could see 2 or 3 of them make some noise throughout their career with how deep and talented this tight end draft is. So that'll be interesting to watch, and that'll kind of key on what we talk about a little bit later with the Raiders. Alan Lazard signed with the Jets, 4-year, $44 million contract. I actually like that. It's familiarity. He's going to be great alongside Garrett Wilson. You'll be able to get rid of that Corey Davis contract, which is a bit of a cancer, if you ask me. I think that's a great – familiarity is the big thing, right? He's going to show up. He's going to be playing with Aaron Rodgers again once that's finalized because I think it happens. That AFC East division is absolutely stacked, and it's kind of scary because – who would think that before the year starts, and this is a knee-jerk reaction, a lot of things could happen during the season, but who would think that a Bill Belichick coached team could very well be 4th place in their division when it's all said and done? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think that Bill O'Brien might be the biggest free agent signing that the Patriots have this offseason. His ability to coach offense. He was honestly an excellent coach for the Texans. Where he went wrong is when they gave him power as a GM. Otherwise, he can call really great plays. The Texans were always relevant when he was there. Giving him just the offensive duties and the nature of Bill O'Brien, I truly believe that Mac Jones is going to love to play for him. And I think the Patriots will be much better. The problem is their division is going to be stacked. Like, if Aaron Rodgers shows up, the Jets are probably still the second best team, but not by much. Not by much. The Dolphins, if Tua can come back and he's not completely, his bell isn't rung anymore, the Dolphins could really do some damage too, especially with that boost in pass defense. That AFC East division, man, they're looking a lot like what the AFC West should have been last year. Not that the AFC West wasn't tough, because I still think a lot of our AFC West teams could have absolutely beat the dog crap out of most teams in the NFL last year. But it is what it is, man. Like, if we were to hype a division up right now, the AFC East is the one to hype up. I think all four teams are very good. All four teams have a chance to make the playoffs. I think they'll have at least three at this point, and it's kind of hard to say otherwise. Looking at the AFC North, there's, Lamar Jackson's received the non-exclusive franchise tag. I think the Ravens really want to make these things work, but they want to do it at a value contract for the Ravens. I just don't see that working out long term, man. If I'm Lamar Jackson, you've had 2 years to come up with a deal with the team. Move on, man. Just ask to be traded. 2 first-round picks is nothing for a team that really wants a premier quarterback, a former MVP. Yes, he's had some injury issues, but if you're a team that's in win-now mode, a team like the Jets, who's probably going to go after Aaron Rodgers, but you get what I'm saying. A team that's in win-now mode, you go after him, man. You do it. You go after him, and you give him the money he wants, because if you have that roster structure, if you have a lot of young guys and a lot of young talent, you go after it. And 2 first-round picks, man, the Baltimore Ravens could do more with those 2 first-round picks than 90% of the teams in this league. I fully believe that. Cincinnati Bengals haven't done a lot. Linebacker Jermaine Pratt re-signed their 3-year deal, $21 million. He's a linebacker that helped a lot on the defensive side of the ball. Cincinnati Bengals, they have a top 15 defense, and Joe Burrow and them guys, they put points on the scoreboard. That's part of the reason why their recipes work so well. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Joe gets paid, because if he continues to build on what he's doing so far in his resume and somehow squeezes a Super Bowl into this, man, it's going to be kind of scary. Browns re-signed their center. They signed Dalvin Tomlinson, which I think it's a big one. I think that's an excellent sign for them. It helps beef up the middle for them. The Browns are going to be a sneaky good football team this year, guys. Like, they won't be a sleeper. Deshaun's going to have a full off season. He's not going to have to worry about his happy times at a massage parlor high this year, because it's taken care of. Everything's settled. So he's back to just focusing on football and making that $240 million guaranteed. And he restructured his deal too to bring on more guys. I think the Browns are going to be a dangerously really good team, honestly, with Amari Cooper and all them guys. So watch out for the Browns. They won't be a joke, and it's kind of funny to say that because that's, again, a tough division. I can't believe I'm going to say this. It's, again, knee-jerk reaction. We're doing this because it's the beginning of free agency and we're excited. The NFL league year technically starts tomorrow, but legal tampering is always fun. Something dangerous about it, It's like jaywalking. You get a thrill, man. Get a little bit of a adrenaline rush. I'm just kidding. No one gets an adrenaline rush from jaywalking, I hope. Unless you're like one of those nerds off of that 70s show or Big Bang Theory. Pittsburgh Steelers might be the 4th place team in the NFC North right now. AFC North right now, which is kind of scary because I don't think anybody's done more with less than Mike Tomlin in years. But they did go after a guard, signed a guard for 2 years. I mean, they need to beef up their offensive line to protect their young quarterback. And they went out and got Patrick Peterson. He's probably a little long in the tooth. He's leaving his prime, but he's still going to be a solid piece for that Steelers team. I'm about it, man. The AFC South, I mean, you got the Texans essentially signing Keenum to a 2-year deal. Noah Brown, Robert Woods is going to get a 2-year deal after he was released from the Titans. That's probably a really good one because you're going to be drafting a rookie quarterback, and you need a really good shelf of players and skill talent there. Robert Woods would help out a lot with that. Shaq Mason, that's a big one. Trade via Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Shaq Mason's been an excellent guard for years. Hopefully he's not on the back end there. Scott Quessenberry was re-signed by the Texans. I mean, I think they've done a really good job. The Colts are still the Colts, man. It feels like they don't do anything until it's the very tier 2 or tier 3 portion of free agency. They're a lot like the Raiders in the sense where, I mean, they're not going to go out and overspend. They're going to get guys they think is a fit, and they're going to do it at a bargain. They're going to wait for the free agency period to go down, and they try to build through the draft. I think the Colts are one of the better drafting teams, too. They don't get enough credit. Jacksonville Jaguars, the thing with them, and nobody's really talking about it enough, is the Calvin Ridley deal. I think that's a huge pickup for them, and I think they're right now the leaders of the AFC South. I know the Titans have been really good for years. I don't like that. I don't know. I don't like that they've struggled to get over the hump in the playoffs, and I think a lot of it has to do with Ryan Tannehill. I just don't think he's that great of a quarterback. I love him as a game manager. Derrick Henry's kind of over the hump. I think he's in that back part of his prime. You just lost a legendary left tackle, in my opinion. Maybe not legendary, but Taylor Lewan is a beast, and he had an attitude that came with it. And he was the Tennessee Titans. Like it was one of those guys that kind of put together a physical mantra. The fact that they're moving on from him, that's kind of a big deal to me. They did sign Andre Dillard. From the Philadelphia Eagles, so that should be interesting to see what happens there. 3 years, $29 million contract, so just under $10 million a year. I think it's a great deal for that. Reportedly, the Raiders were in on trading up for the number one pick. And we're offering the same picks as the Panthers. Would you have been okay with that trade? Man, it's tough because I don't think the Panthers have as many holes as the Raiders. I just don't think the Panthers have as many holes as the Raiders. I think the Raiders have, man, their entire defense needs a remodel, man. Their entire defense is bad, with the exception of Max Crosby, who should have been, on the docket for Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know how he got snubbed for the second year in a row, but the reality is the team isn't winning enough. The defense is horrible. It's been ranked 27th or worse the last 10 years. I just don't see it. I like all the weapons on offense. I do. I mean, they're still really good. The other issue is the offensive line. Horrible. So there's just too many holes. I don't know if I would have liked that trade. If they traded up from 7 to 4 to get their guy, that makes sense because you don't have to give up as much. But and honestly, the Raiders wouldn't have had to give up as much as the Panthers did because we're talking about 2 more hole picks, right? I think the Panthers did the smart thing, and I'm kind of glad you brought that up, man, because I'd love to talk about that. I think the Panthers did what they needed to do for their franchise. The Panthers did what they needed to do for Frank Reich. I think Frank Reich deserves a rookie quarterback. And in my opinion, I think it's C.J. Stroud. I don't know why they'd go Bryce Young. I think C.J. Stroud is the dude. I think he's a perfect guy for Frank Reich's system. Unless they go ballsy and go after upside and Anthony Richardson, which then again RPO system, intermediate throws, letting the quarterback be an athlete. That's kind of perfect for Frank Reich. But right now, C.J. Stroud, in my mind, is the best quarterback in this draft, and I totally see him being the guy for the Carolina Panthers. I think that's great. On the other end, I think the Bears won that trade. I really do. I think they got so much value for that number 1 overall pick, and you're still picking inside the top 10. You get a number 1 wide receiver. When you look at DJ Moore's statistics, I think he's got like 5,200 yards in 4 years. That's more than any Bears receiver in history, dude. What? Right now. It's kind of pathetic when you think about the Bears, but that's kind of how they've been with the receivers. You get to pair him with a really young, athletic, and plus size or plus skill thrower in Justin Fields. I like it, man. It's a big deal. And you guys have been loading up on linemen. Not to mention, you gained 4 more picks. You're going to have 2 first-round picks the next 2 years. I think it's amazing. I think it was great for the Bears. I really do. I think both teams won the trade. Believe it or not, I think they both won the trade. But if I was to give an edge to one of them, it's definitely the Bears because they already have their quarterback. They had 115 million in cap space, and now they get to build around that young quarterback finally. And we get to see what the Bears are going to look like in Ryan Poles' image, which looks really good. Taron Rodriguez says, I agree. The Raiders' defense needs an upgrade, a massive upgrade, dude. You have one really good player. I actually really like Trayvon Moehrig. I don't think he gets enough credit. And it doesn't help that he was a rookie. He was a rookie with Gus Bradley in his first year, and he played very well. He had excellent scores in that cover 3 system. Then he switches schemes the very next year. It's just the typical Raiders, man. We just have new coaches every other year, and it probably will be the same because at this rate, man, even though there are some pros to what the Raiders are doing, I just don't see them finishing better than 3rd in this division right now. There's just no way. The AFC West is still stacked. You still have some stud young quarterbacks. Mahomes is still leading the way. Justin Herbert is an absolute beast, and I think Kellen Moore is going to change that guy's trajectory. And that's kind of crazy considering we look at Justin Herbert and we're like, dude, this guy could be a perennial All-Pro and a legend. I think Kellen Moore is going to help a ton with the way he loves to run the football, and he loves to set up play action, which is going to do nothing but help a young guy like Justin Herbert. If you run the ball efficiently with that rebuilt offensive line, I think the Chargers are in really good shape. I've been saying this for the last couple of years. I think the worst thing that could happen to the NFL with these types of teams is that they figure out that their young quarterback does not have to do everything. Run the football. Look what happened with the Chiefs. I said it all last offseason. Even though I predicted them to be third, I also said if they figure out how to run the football, they're going to run roughshod over the league, and they won the Super Bowl. Because they figured out how to run the football. They loaded up their offensive line with big men. They got physical. They had a 7th-round draft pick run for 1,200 yards last year. They didn't miss in the draft. Like, that's what the Chiefs did. The Chargers have all the potential in the world to do that too. And I like Kellen Moore. I like him as an OC. And I think Kellen Moore might be Brandon Staley's saving grace, because Justin Herbert, you don't want him to end up like Derek Carr, where you have 4 or 5 offensive coordinators in his first portion or his first tenure in the league. It's crazy. Adam Karnick says, LOL, our history of receivers, let's just say not good. I love the trade for the Bears. Yeah, it's an amazing trade for the Bears, man. Amazing trade. I think they did a great job. Staying in the AFC West, Jarrett Stidham, you want to talk about where the Raiders are at right now? The backup quarterback wanted to go to a division rival. I mean, what? Samaje Perine, I actually really like that signing, especially with the instability at running back the Broncos have had the last couple of years. Javonte Williams is a beast. He'll be the starter, but Samaje is going to come in and be excellent for what they need to do. I like the Ben Powers. Mike McGlinchey got way overpaid. 5 years, $87 million. That's crazy to me. I don't think Mike McGlinchey was that good. Zach Allen, I think, was an overpay too, especially a year removed from paying Randy Gregory and I don't know, man. I see what the Broncos are trying to do. Like, they're trying to compensate. I love that Sean Payton is their head coach. I think he's one of the best offensive minds we've seen in the last 20 years. I think he's going to get Russ back to his strengths. But the one thing that Sean Payton did that will do that we didn't see from Nathaniel Hackett last year is this Broncos team, which already has a top 5 defense, and they probably would have been the number 1 defense if the offense would have been worth a shit. Sorry. I mean, just in general, if they would have scored points, that defense would have been automatically pushed to number 1 because you have less pressure on your defense. You're playing with a lead, and you're blitzing, and you're constantly rushing 4, pinning the ears back and dropping guys into coverage, which puts pressure on those 5 eligible guys that have to, run routes. The Broncos could have been the number 1 defense last year, ahead of the Niners if the offense would have been half as good as it was. You get what I'm saying. And I think Sean Payton fixes that. I really do. Sean Payton's really smart. He's going to look at Russell Wilson. He's going to tell his team, hey, we're going to be physical. We're going to establish the line of scrimmage. And he's going to do what Russ does well. He's going to get him out of the pocket. He's going to protect him. He's got a couple of running backs to hand the ball off to now. You still have Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. I hate saying these glowing things about the AFC West, but I'm being real with you guys. I think the AFC West is yet again a gauntlet, and the Raiders look like they're the 4th best team. Let's do a quick overview of some of the other teams and what they were able to do this offseason so far. I do like the Stephon Gilmore trade to the Dallas Cowboys. I do like that the Dallas Cowboys put Tony Pollard on a non-exclusive franchise tag. So he's not going anywhere because no one's given up 2 first-round picks for a running back. But, yeah, I mean, I like those picks. Tony Pollard's a beast, man. And honestly, I think this is the time where the Cowboys really need to start entertaining. Is it time to move on from Zeke? Like, you can find a guy like Zeke in the draft that's younger, more durable. It is what it is, man. No disrespect to Zeke. He's just – the shelf life of a running back's crazy. New York Giants, love what they did. I'm not a big fan of Daniel Jones' contract, but it was still very team favorable. They're going to re-sign Barkley. I truly believe that. Sterling Shepard, I was kind of shocked they got him for that deal. The big one, man, and nobody's talking about it enough, Darren Waller is going to open up that offense. I cannot believe the Raiders let him go for a 3rd-round pick. I get it. The mindset is they're trying to clear cap and they're trying to draft, a couple guys out of this really deep tight end class, because Darren Waller is going to be gone. I don't think Hunter Renfrow, or not Hunter Renfrow. I mean, I think he actually ends up getting traded sooner or later with the way things are going. But Foster Moreau, second tight end who played a lot when Darren Waller was hurt. I don't see him coming back. Honestly, he could end up being a Saint. No joke. That's not even a joke. I could totally see that happen. I think that Darren Waller to the Giants was awesome. If you tell me at the beginning of the season, and you guys in the chat tell me right now, that your team could get Darren Waller for the number 100 pick this year, a third-round pick, are you going for that? Hell yeah, because when Darren Waller is healthy, he's literally a top 3 tight end in the league. Ask Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce knows he's the best tight end in the league. He said it 100 times on his own show with his brother Jason. A couple years ago, Darren Waller was by far the best tight end. He had nobody else around him, and he was just rocking it, man. Darren Waller's a special guy. Now you get to give him. Now he's going to be on a team with a very creative coach like Brian Dable. Unbelievable. Adam says yes, and twice on Sunday. Absolutely. The Bears would take him in a heartbeat right now. Are you kidding me? Put him with Kmet. Obviously, he's the leader in the clubhouse, and Kmet gets to learn behind one of the most athletically gifted tight ends we've probably ever seen in the NFL. With Justin Fields and now DJ Moore, dude, that'd be nuts. Absolutely nuts for the Bears. But now he's a Giant. Good for him. And there's another division which, you know, we used to call them the NFC least for years. Now they're all four. Well, 3 of the 4 teams are stacked. Washington still has they have an amazing defense. And I do believe that they could be a team that trades up to make some noise for a quarterback. Or maybe they really do believe in Sam Howell, and maybe they give him a shot on that rookie deal. You know, third round, it was like a 4th-round pick for Sam Howell. He looked really good in some of his games. Load up that team. Load up the fronts like you've been doing, man. See what happens. Truly. So kind of an overview there. I do like what the Bears have done. I really like Tremaine Edmonds. Again, I think a lot of these guys were overpaid, but the Bears are kind of in that situation, in my opinion. They're just in that situation. They have to overpay for these guys because they've been bad. And if you want to take a team or a guy like Tremaine Edmonds away from a really good team, you tend to got to overpay him. Otherwise, Tremaine Edmonds is probably just going to stay back on a value deal for the Bills to win a Super Bowl. I like their moves. I'm excited to see how it shakes out in the NFC North, because with the Packers probably going to be losing Aaron Rodgers here soon, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a bit more of a bloodbath than what it normally is. I don't know if the Chicago Bears are going to be, like, they'll probably finish 3rd, but I'm really interested to see what the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings do, because they could be that team, those 2 teams that are really gunning for that number 1 spot. The NFC South is trash. Like, it is what it is, man. They're not good. I think the Falcons are also overpaying for players, and that's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. I do like that they traded for Jonnu Smith. Gives Kyle Pitts a backup. That's big. That's huge. They're loading up on offensive line. I think they're trying to do what they can to protect Ritter. Cool. I still think they're second best behind the Saints. The Saints have a lot of work they need to do. They have to focus on the fronts too. I've been putting some study time into them. They really need to get a couple of guards, depth. I still think they're the best offense in this division right now. Defensively, they don't have a single defensive tackle on their roster right now, with the exception of practice squad. So they're desperate. They might just rebuild their defensive line, but so many things can happen, man. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are probably dead in the water, man. Let's be honest. I just don't. Kyle Trask isn't going to move the needle for anybody. No, it's not happening. And then the Niners, they might be winning free agency, believe it or not. The Niners might be winning free agency. They signed Sam Darnold. He's going to be a backup to Brock Purdy or Trey Lance. Like, it is what it is. They have 3 quarterbacks. They're probably going to have all 3 of those guys ready to go at any time with the way things happened last year. But they're building around rookie contracts or low-value contracts. This team is going to be absolutely stacked. The Niners team is going to be absolutely stacked. Javon Hargrave was a huge deal. I think he might have been a bit overpaid. Again, 4-year, $84 million. But if you add him to that defense, which was already number 1 last year, that's crazy to me, man. It's lights out. It really is. It's unbelievable. I think NFL free agency, there's been a lot of inflated contracts. I think that there were very few top caliber NFL players this season. But it is what it is. Like, you got to take what you can get, and when the value's there, you hit it. You hit when you can. I just think some of these contracts are overvalued. Moving over to the Raiders. Man. So we're going to expand on everything you guys kind of brought up. Okay, let's start with the top. Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think he was an upgrade over Carr. I think he's an upgrade in the system, but he's not a better quarterback, and those two can coexist. I think he's perfect for what Josh McDaniels wants to do. And he was on a very team-friendly contract. Is he better than Derek Carr? Hell no. Okay, listen, Jimmy G may have more wins, but I can tell you this right now. Jimmy G has never played, and nobody's talked about this, by the way. Jimmy G has never played on a team where they haven't had a top 10 defense. Look back at the New England days. Belichick, doesn't matter what year, has always had a top 10 defense. Then he goes to San Francisco. They've been top 5 the entire time Jimmy G has been the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy G has never had the luxury of playing with a bottom half or bottom fourth defense like Derek Carr did with the Raiders. And as of right now, from what I've seen through free agency, if the Raiders don't really get some serious value adds in day 2, day 3 of free agency, it's probably not going to change much because you have Max Crosby and that's it right now. You really do. I'm not joking. This Raiders defense does not look better than it did last year already. Now, you've seen some money moves. You can tell. I'm not panicking as a lover of this team. I'm not panicking as an analyst of this team because when you follow the money, when you follow the moves, you can tell that they're gearing up for big moves. But you can also tell that they're going to value the draft, that this team is going to build in the draft. They now have I think they have 13 picks this year. They have 2 picks in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds. At least 2 picks in 3 through 7. That's big time value, man, especially if you can hit on those players. You hit on half of those picks, because I actually think there's 3 in the 5th round. If you hit on half of those picks, 3 in the 5th round, 3 in the 7th. If you hit on half of those picks, half of them, you're looking at a much better football team next year. Maybe not this year, but next year than what we've seen in the last 5 years because of how bad the draft picks were under Mike Mayock and John Gruden. You can see what Dave Ziegler's trying to do. I have faith that Dave Ziegler is going to be back because I think so right now his roster structuring is so questionable. His moves are questionable. His contract structuring is absolutely a work of art, man. There's nothing more team-friendly than what that guy's been doing. And I'm not kidding. And he's the GM for the Raiders. So usually, because the team is normally bad, you have to overpay for athletes. He's not doing that. He's refusing to do that. He's scouting. He's bringing in players. I think Brandon Faison is an excellent corner. I think he's better in zone than what this defense is going to be. But let's be honest, man. This is a rebuild. This is absolutely 100% a rebuild. And I don't know if Josh McDaniels survives that. Not after last year, not after how disappointing things were. Not after you hear all this stuff about David Carr and Derek Carr. It's obvious that Josh McDaniels just wasn't sold on the guy and didn't really give him much of a chance. He didn't build the offense around Derek Carr. He was expecting Derek Carr to run his offense. And that doesn't make sense. That's very stubborn. That's very old school in today's society. Your backup quarterback who started the final 2 games didn't want to re-sign with you. He would have rather have gone to a division rival. We're talking about Jarrett Stidham. There was a possibility he's competing this year. And with Jimmy G on the roster, there's a possibility that Jarrett Stidham plays 15 games. Because Jimmy G, man, he's glass right now. It is what it is. That guy decided to go to a division rival. Learn under Sean Payton instead of stay with you. Someone he knows is familiar. I don't think Josh McDaniels is a popular guy. They did those league surveys, and we haven't talked about this yet. There was a league survey sent out by the NFLPA. The Raiders had top marks in facilities, treatment of players, their families, all that stuff. That's all stuff that's done by administration and the front office. As far as relationship with coaches, workability, it was one of the last in the league. One of the last in the league. Not as bad as the Commanders, but one of the last in the league. This guy is running the Patriot way, and this dude's a loser. I'm being honest with you guys. I want to be as objective as I can be, but he's 17-28 in 3 seasons as a head coach. You had weapons last year. Your team blew 7 2-score leads. Now, normally you'd point to the defense, but it was a mixed bag, man. Some of that was on the offensive play calling, too. Way too conservative for a team that had a horrible defense. This guy is calling plays like he was in New England still. Like he had a top 10 defense. He didn't. One of the worst in the league defensively. and he didn't adapt. That's bad. And it's well known. He likes to run his plays. He doesn't like autonomy at the line of scrimmage. He thinks he's the genius. He's the mad, and he is a football genius. I will say this: Josh McDaniels is a football genius. He had the ability to learn 20 years behind the greatest football coach of all time. But the reality is, he looks like a dumbass when he's a head coach, and no one can argue that right now. 17-28, you cannot argue that. And right now, the way the Raiders are looking, and I get that this sounds knee-jerky, but I have to be real. I have to look at what we see. That defense has not gotten better, and the rest of the division is getting better. Right now, the Raiders could very easily be the fourth-place team right now. You didn't upgrade at quarterback. You may have upgraded for a quarterback in this system, but that is not Jimmy G is not a better quarterback, and people who say that don't know what the hell they're talking about. If you thought Derek Carr was nervous under pressure, A-gap pressure, Jimmy G is going to run for his life if they do not fix that offensive line. I'm talking about Andre James, who is absolutely horrible. Like, I'm just being real with it. He's horrible. He's one of the last in the league as far as centers are concerned. And Alex Barr were horrible. I do like Thayer Mumford. I love Colton Miller. He might not even be on the roster either, by the way things are looking. No joke. By the way they're doing things, man, he might not be on the roster either. But I'm just being real with you folks. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. We have a head coach with a losing record by a lot. We're talking by 11 games. He may be considered an offensive genius, but right now he does not look like he knows how to manage people or manage a team. And it's pretty damn evident right now. You could not get along with a quarterback last year that is probably one of the most likable guys in the league. You took a quarterback that was averaging 4,800 yards a year and like 68+% completion rate, who was the best fourth quarter comeback quarterback in the league, and you completely changed him last year. That's on coaching, man. Some of it's on Derek Carr. Maybe he was way too damn stubborn and he didn't buy in, and it bothered McDaniels. But at the end of the day, McDaniels hasn't done shit. He hasn't done a damn thing. He's won 6 Super Bowls under the greatest coach of all time, with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and his top 10 defenses. But take those guys away, and what is Josh McDaniels? 17-28. So I don't know if he's back after this year, especially if they finish 4th place, which could very well happen. Is there a round 2 through 5 quarterbacks that intrigues you? He could still be behind Jimmy. Honestly, man, I think they pick a quarterback at 7. If they don't pick a quarterback at 7, they're trading back and they're getting the best available defensive guy. But if I were the Raiders, if Will Levis is sitting there at 7, don't be stupid, take him. If he has the ability to sit behind Jimmy G for 2 years and learn from him, because Will Levis just looks like a Patriots quarterback. Let's be honest. When you watch him throw the ball, he looks like a Patriots quarterback. He's quick delivery. He sets his feet. He lets it go. I mean, he's that perfect Patriots quarterback when it comes to that stuff, okay? And that's kind of where we're at with the Raiders. Okay, this is the Patriot way now. It's Patriots West. It is what it is. As far as round 2 is concerned, I mean, Hendon Hooker is really the only one I really like in round 2. I think the kid out of Stanford is a guy that you could pick up in round 2 if you're really enamored by his traits, because he's a big dude with a big arm. He's like 6'6" with a big arm. I think that's a guy that you could really be enamored with. But otherwise, I think that this draft is so top-heavy of those first 4 guys that Hendon Hooker's going to fall to the second round, or he's picked up late in the first just because there's no other quarterbacks and teams might need that dude. Like the Tennessee Titans are a perfect example. Like Hendon Hooker could go to them just because I don't think Malik Willis is the dude for them. Hendon Hooker's likely an upgrade. The issue with Hendon Hooker, too, is he's coming off injury and he's 25 already. Now, 25 doesn't mean a lot for quarterbacks these days, but it is what it is, man. You got to think about that stuff. Still a rookie contract nonetheless, and a mature guy, really mature guy. Yeah, the Raiders are going to be a work in progress. I think the goal is to keep Devontae Adams happy. True, but with the way things are happening, like Darren Waller was traded, it's very likely Hunter Renfro's traded because they signed Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is a really good slot player. He's a big guy. He's a 200-pound slot receiver. He's a much bigger guy, and he knows the system, right? Hunter Renfro's issue with the team this year, he's a very improv type receiver. He does an excellent job of creating space, but he runs a ton of option routes. That was something that was great in the West Coast offense under Gruden. He let him do that. He let him be creative with Derek Carr. You just don't do that with Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels is just way too smart compared to everybody else. That was cynicism. I'm sorry. That was so cynical. But it's true. Josh McDaniels just at 17-28 is just smarter than everybody else, man. He's got 6 Super Bowl rings after being carried by Tom Brady and the greatest coach of all time and top 10 defenses every single year. Josh McDaniels is just way better than everybody else. So you have to do his system. That's why Jacoby Myers is there. I don't see Hunter Renfrow back. No joke. 2 defensive players were signed, Brandon Faison and then Epps out of Philadelphia for the safety. Otherwise, there's I guess they did land a linebacker. He was a backup linebacker in Pittsburgh. About $6 million a year is what he's getting, so that's kind of starter money. We'll see if he's the guy, for that dude. But I think they also signed him to kind of push Diablo, because I'm a big Divine Diablo fan. Regardless, guys, the pros are I think that this team is building a team for long-term success. The cons are I don't think this coaching staff is going to be around to experience it. After this season, if we finish 4th and if we don't look competitive against the Chiefs, I don't think Mark Davis has a choice. If there's really no future plan at quarterback, which I think there will be, I do believe if Will Levis is there at 7, they draft him. If Will Levis is not there, the Raiders will probably be looking to trade out of the 1st, or they'll take the best available player on defense there. I've heard rumors of offensive tackle because we really need one bad. But the Raiders are so desperate on defense, it wouldn't be surprising if Will Levis is not there because some team traded up, that they trade back and try and get the best available defense when they trade back. The Raiders are so needy on defense, it's not even funny. They ranked 27th in the league last year in defense, and it looked much worse in times. When you put 6 games with a double-digit lead, your team loses. That's on the defense. At the end of the day, it's on the defense. But that defense did not have a lot of talent. The Raiders spent the least amount of money on their defense last year than anybody else in the league. It correlates. It matters. I think a second year under Graham's system, you're going to see improvements. Are they going to jump from 27 to top 10? Probably not. It's unrealistic. There's going to be a lot of rookies from what we see here. Like, majority of this draft is likely going to be defense. So Jimmy G is going to have to make beef stew out of lemons, man. Like, they're going to give him lemons and tell him to make beef stew. It doesn't make sense, but Andy Milonakis could do it, so anybody could, right? That's just the reality we're in. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm being as objective as I can be. You have a 17-28 head coach calling the shots for this team. I do like what Dave Ziegler's doing from a contract structure standpoint, but some of his moves don't make sense. They don't. They're questionable. Darren Waller, I'm not really questioning because it's a deep tight end class. Believe it or not, I'm not questioning that. I don't like it necessarily, but I'm not questioning it. A very deep tight end class. They could get Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. They could get Kuntz out of Old Dominion probably late. He's a very, very good dude. Very, very tall, explosive tight end. Schoonmaker, I think it was, out of Michigan. Very talented guy. A lot of options at tight end. So I can see why they moved on from Darren Waller. But I just don't see Jimmy G being very successful this year with a really bad defense and an offensive line that needs a lot of work. Because if they thought Derek Carr was a statue, man, Jimmy G does not move. Unless it's a pre-designed movement, he does not move. And we're going to find that out real quick if they don't make some adjustments. Sign your defensive line, draft a bunch of defensive linemen, draft a bunch of offensive linemen, compete, shore up the fronts, and you will compete. Look at what the Eagles did. They didn't look good a couple years ago. They loaded up their fronts, and they made it to the Super Bowl the following year. I don't see that for the Raiders because they don't have that dude at quarterback. But I would like to see them finish better than 4th. And I don't think anybody would argue with me right now that if the Raiders were to play today, they'd be the 4th place team in the division. Period. I totally agree, Adam. But you get the analogy. It's a no-win situation for Jimmy G. He went from having top 10 defenses, top 5 defenses in San Francisco to now going to a bottom bottom half of the league, worse than bottom half of the league defense in Las Vegas. It's going to be very tough. They're going to have to score 28 to 30 points a game. Like Derek Carr scored like 26, 27 points a game in his career as a Raider. He still lost 13 more games than he won. That's the point. Jimmy G's going to have to outscore teams, and I don't see Jimmy G outscoring the Chiefs. I don't see him outscoring Justin Herbert on a consistent basis. He's going to need help, and I hope that they do it. Still young, still really early. Not him. This whole free agency period is still really early. A lot could happen, and I'm optimistic. I'm also optimistic about the draft. 13 picks, that's awesome, and I can't wait to study that. This is the Sin City Sports Show, IE Vegas. The Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tune in every Tuesday evening, 7 Pacific Standard on Spreaker Radio, where we talk all things Vegas sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. Get at us on our Twitter forums, at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson is my personal, where we talk all things Vegas sports. I love talking with people. As always, folks, love, peace, and hair grease.